are these people?
What do we talk about? We've talked about it a lot here on the channel. What do you feel? What would Kwame Ture feel we would have to do?
In terms of
Anything like
like,
taking our power back.
right,
Like
like
what?
the
I mean,
idea and
what do we have to
like
do to do that? To get our
right,
power back? What does that require?
organizing,
Yes,
but
sir. That's the
organizing,
word.
but organizing behind principles. What is your
And not
ideology?
and not people,
Right,
right? Okay.
right.
Well, you probably recognize this in the news. You know that guy. That's Lula. 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 Um, Brazilian. I guess he's the president. What are they called?
President-elect,
Okay,
president-elect. Well,
sure.
considering that Bolsonaro is basically like, nah, but
El
president-elect
El
nonetheless.
Jefe. El
Yeah.
Presidente. Got it. I guess it wouldn't be El. It would be. How's Portuguese work with that? I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember. Someone will tell me. But anyway, so this is from Andre Barbieri, right? And it was originally published in Portuguese in Esquarda Diario, and it was translated by Robert Bellano, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Bolsonarism will not be defeated in Brazil without organizing independently of the Lula government. Lula won by a narrow margin in yesterday's elections in Brazil, but his government is unwilling to truly challenge the right's advance. A Brazilian socialist describes the fight ahead for the country's workers and left. So keep all those labels in mind here.
Right.
Again, labels are generally bad, but we'll work through it. We'll get through it. So Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has been declared the winner of yesterday's presidential election in Brazil with a slim margin of victory, which wasn't yesterday. That was like almost a week
Sunday.
ago now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Less than 2 percentage points separated him and Jair Bolsonaro. The far right incumbent, meanwhile, increasing his vote share considerably from the first round earlier this month. The country's poorest residents, especially in the northeastern regions, have come to identify the far right with the enormous crisis affecting the country, from the devastating coronavirus pandemic to widespread hunger and unemployment. Bolsonaro is the first president since the end of the dictatorship to fail to be reelected to a second term. U.S. President Joe Biden called Lula to congratulate him on his victory, as did French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, signaling support of U.S. and European imperialism for the new PT, that's the Workers' Party, government.
Right. I actually have a comment on this
Okay.
because people were like, um, why would Biden um thank Lula for winning? Considering Biden is not, you know, anywhere near a socialist at all. You can also argue if Lula is either. He's like, just for the record, Lula is not like a full out socialist. He's more like a social a la Bernie Sanders. So, and funny enough, I was listening to Jimmy Dore this morning where he talked about this with Pasta. I guess Pasta was on uh, a live stream, maybe yesterday, if not Monday, and they talked about this, and the reality is Lula has governed because this is his third term essentially running in the country.
Yep.
The argument that Pasta was making is that Lula, for all intents and purposes, he ran in a way that he equated to if Bernie was president now. Like, there's still going to be ties to Wall Street. There's still going to be ties, with the elites, basically, World Bank, IMF, all of that. That Lula has one foot in terms of that, in that class, so to speak, politically. what makes Lula special and why his win was significant is that at minimum, he allocated a lot of that money towards the working class. That's why he was very popular, you know. So Lula, it basically has both feet. Like he's not a full out socialist, you know. Let's get that right now. But what made Lula popular is that he did something for the working class that people are recognizing. Um, that he was popular like during his last 2 terms. So but they like, and I saw this a lot on Twitter just as far as, oh, Lula. Well, it kind of makes sense if you're a Bernie sycophant, like Lula's basically that. So it's the idea of like, oh, like Lula is a socialist, he's going to change the country, Bolsonaro is a shit, like he's like Trump and all that kind of stuff. But he's still connected to corporations though. So which no one is talking about. So that being said, like, yes, we're happy that Lula won, but he's not going to be full on blown socialist, in terms of the workers seizing the rights of production, so to speak. He will do just enough to have the working class uplift their conditions a little bit, but it won't be totally, worker-led society. There's still going to be the issues regarding like, the rich and the working class in Brazil. Oh, you unmute me, I think.
Yep. So
I might gave away the whole article, but I didn't actually read.
Not entirely.
So
Lula earned over 60 million votes compared to just over 58 million for Bolsonaro. The Workers' Party leader won around 3 million more votes compared to the first round, while Bolsonaro increased his count by over 7 million, confirming that the country remains in a reactionary political situation. Bolsonaro's allies also gained a majority in Congress. Okay, keep that in mind. So, in the state of Minas Gerais, Bolsonaro was able to reduce Lula's margin of victory substantially. Lula won the state by 500,000 votes in the first round, but by just under 30,000 in the runoff. In the state of Sao Paulo, Bolsonaro beat Lula by 1.7 votes in round 1, but 2.6 million in round 2. In both the capital city of Sao Paulo and in Bahia, Lula's margin was reduced by around 200,000 votes from the first round. The northeast of the country remained a stronghold for Lula, and he was able to retain approximately the same level of support as in the first round. Excuse me. So, Lula has already declared that his will not be a PT government. That's that Workers' Party, right?
Right.
And indeed, he plans to govern alongside Simone Tebet, Marine Silva, Geraldo Alckmin, and other figures of the right or center-right. At his press conference, Lula reiterated a discourse of national unity. I have a thing for that. Scroll. Unity! At his press conference, Lula reiterated a discourse of national unity and negotiation with the traditional parties and state institutions like the army, while rejecting the idea that there exists two Brazils. He stressed that this is not a victory won by the PT, but by the enormous democratic movement that goes beyond political parties, and assured the press that he will negotiate with any governor or mayor, no matter his or her political party.
Right. So it kind of goes along with what I was saying, yes. Like, and I mean, you have to, I guess, in terms of, especially given that Parliament is still very conservative. So, so I think he's not going to be full blown socialist here. Like, and again, given those names, again, he's going to have to cooperate with Wall Street and corporate banks, World Bank,
that are in Brazil,
in some way, shape, or form. That's going to be the reality. So again, don't make a mistake. He's not going to be like full out socialist here. Like, he will do enough, given his background and his past political career, do just enough to uplift the working class a little bit, but it's still not going to be enough where they're actually like really thriving
Yeah.
There's still going to be that issue, as he said, you know,
So,
it's not a win for the working class, really. It's for the party.
right.
So who does that include? That includes the elites.
Well, here we go.
So
So, Lula spoke of the need for greater democracy in the country, more religious freedom, ending racism and prejudice, and for increasing salaries in the face of rising inflation. However, he admitted that he will be governing in a very difficult political moment, signaling a need for patience with his administration, which will surely be making many concessions to the right. He also made a point of sending greetings to Pope Francis and quoted various biblical passages. Lula also called for reestablishing strong commercial relations with the U.S. and European Union without mentioning China. He denounced Bolsonaro's disastrous environmental policies, but without any reference to the highly destructive agribusiness industry. We are not interested in a war over the environment, he declared, but we are ready to defend the Amazon. With the country divided, Lula would be forced to govern in a situation of extreme political polarization, a strengthened right wing, and an inherited economic crisis. Bolsonaro's supporters made various attempts to manipulate the election results, for example, blocking Lula supporters from entering polling sites, actions that generated further condemnation of the Bolsonaro campaign. In the Northeast, where 27% of the electorate is concentrated and where Bolsonaro is particularly hated, the Federal Railway Police and the Army carried out various operations that sought to keep people from voting. The head of the Railway Police declared publicly his support for Bolsonaro on the eve of the elections, making these actions even more scandalous. These attempts at voter suppression affected the vote count throughout the Northeast and in various cities where Lula emerged as the frontrunner after the first round. It was yet another example of the repressive forces of the state, where the far right holds a strong grip, intervening in Brazilian politics. The military was also granted the right to oversee the vote counts. Thanks to a ruling by right-wing judge Alexandra de Moraes and the Supreme Electoral Court, it is imperative that we fight these threats by the far right with strikes and workplace actions without maintaining any confidence in the court. After all, these very courts were responsible for the return of the right-wing power since 2016 and are no allies of ours. In the face of any attempts at a coup or challenge to the election results by Bolsonaro, we must take to the streets and demand the major union organize to shut down the country. Bolsonarism will remain a potent force both in the streets and in Congress, while Bolsonaro himself will use his strong electoral showing yesterday to lead the opposition to the government of Lula and Alckmin. Meanwhile, the results of yesterday's elections show that the broad front, led by Lula and Alckmin, together with the sectors of the right, did not keep the far right from advancing. To the contrary, it only provided more fuels to the reactionary. The Lula campaign promised to maintain all the right-wing counter-reforms of recent years, including the labor and pensions reforms of 2016 that were supported by big business, and is clearly adapted to conservative agenda of Bolsonaro. As evidence of this adaptation, Lula has said that he does not support the right to abortion. He will instead let Congress decide the issue, and directed a letter to evangelical leaders promising to include them in the government's decision-making. We shared the hatred of Bolsonaro felt by the workers and young people who rejected the far-right leader at the polls and who celebrate the end of his presidency. At the same time, it is necessary to point out that it will not be possible to fight Bolsonarism in alliance with the right wing. As Lula and the PT are doing, Lula's government will compromise with the right. We must prepare a struggle against Bolsonarism and the right-wing attacks that have been implemented since the 2016 coup, with complete independence from the government and organized at the level of the rank and file. The starting point for our struggle must be scraping all the counter-reforms enacted by the right and in favor of big capital. It's necessary to fight for the reduction of the work week to 30 hours without any cuts to salaries and for the distribution of hours among the employed and unemployed. The starting point for our struggle must be scraping all the counter-reforms enacted by the right and in favor of big capital. Is necessary to fight for reduction. I just read that. The fight is critical for the construction of an independent working class and socialist alternative. The only force capable of putting end to the crisis is sending the far right once and for all to the dustbin of history. So, I mean, he's calling for organizing independently, which is something we call for frequently.
Right. So I think that's one thing that I do appreciate about Lula saying,
Yeah.
He's saying, I can only do so much here. You have to organize outside of that, which honestly, and now thinking about this, I have to wonder, like, because again, he's a Bernie of Brazil.
Yeah.
Like, and so you have to
Or an
imagine,
Obama.
like,
I mean,
or
it sounds
right,
like.
yeah. Like, but I imagine he's more closer to Bernie in certain instances
Yeah.
than Obama
The weird
was,
stuff
I
is
would
like
say.
letting the religious leaders like have a say in things. I mean, separation of church and state would be
Right.
nice.
Right. So,
Um,
yeah, even within the article, he's not really left in certain
no.
issues. I'm sure
And
people
he's
like,
wanting to connect economically with the US and
right.
Europe.
Which, again, this kind of goes to shows how lazy people on Twitter are. And then, like, a lot of these big channels who are kind of like, Lula won, he's so base, and all this kind of stuff. And it's kind of like,
Yeah.
no, like, he is
Yeah,
not
check
the
again.
socialist that you're making him. And I think ultimately we see that. We see, like, how people, you know, like, just basically are fanboys and girls for the squad and
Yeah.
fanboys and girls after Bernie, but the reality is, and they're doing the same thing with Lula now, but then, like, at the same time, it's like Lula just said he is not pro-abortion,
Yeah.
for example, you know,
Right.
so no one's going to talk about that. I haven't heard anyone talk about that. He's already said he has to, collaborate with the right, which, again, it makes sense given his parliament is going to be mostly conservative. So it makes sense. So I, so honestly, I'm kind of torn on this because obviously we want just ideally like a full out socialist just to kind of help the working class or whatever. But I think Lula kind of understands that's not going to work, you know, and the only way that it will happen is if the people make that happen. So I do appreciate that he said, I can only do so much here. You have to make it happen in terms of organizing. And I think from that changes people's minds because the fact that, like, it was that close of an election, again, no one's talking about it. Like, the thing is, people are talking about it in terms of left and right. I kind of look at it in terms of like affluent versus not,
Up and down. Yeah.
up and down.
I mean, it's a
Like,
class problem and less
I
of
see
a
it as more of a class problem,
ideology
if anything
problem.
else, versus a party issue. Because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, not all, but I'm pretty sure the majority of people who wanted Bolsonaro to win are comfortable. They're good. So they
Yeah.
didn't really mind Bolsonaro, being um, president because they're all right.
Yeah.
Like, same thing here. There are plenty of people who may not like Biden, but will vote for him again because they're good. They're comfortable. So, you know, so I think it'll be interesting to kind of watch over the next few years what happens in Brazil. Um, but yeah, like I said, I do appreciate Lula saying the people have to rise up. And
Yeah.
I'm sure given what's happening in Latin America right now, I'm sure it's a lot
Well,
easier for a
I don't even know
revolution
if
there.
he's saying that. I mean, it seems more like this writer was saying that, you know?
Right, right.
Like,
So that, yeah, good point. But, you know,
um,
um,
but I'm glad someone's saying it because it's
right,
true,
right.
you
So
know?
it's really the idea of like people have to organize. But again, you have to organize behind an ideology.
Yes.
Don't idolize Lula. And I think that's what people are doing, which is like,
Idealize issues,
stop,
finalize your demands. Like,
stop. Like, yes, idolize
what
your
do you
demand.
want? Figure
Right,
out what you want, fight for what you want, and get anyone else who wants to fight for those same things to join you. Like,
right,
it's that simple, even if that's something basic,
right.
you know?
So, so yeah, I hope this will be the catalyst. Now, like I said, it's Lula. He's a promising start, but where
Yep.
he started basically the ball rolling. So it's really up to the people of Brazil to
I'm sure
really push it
time will
forward. But
tell.
yeah, like
Um,
given what's happening in Latin America, I'm sure it'll be interesting to watch, but I'm sure there'll be I think it's easier for more of an uprising there, given that a lot of Latin American countries are becoming more socialist.
yeah.
So I feel like Brazil will hopefully kind of follow suit in that if the people kind of take the reins. So it'll be interesting to see. But
Yeah.
yeah, uh,
Well,
happy Lula won, but stop idolizing him, folks. He's not that great, you
yes.
know?
I mean,
So, you know,
you know,
but
continue
yeah,
the fight pretty much. That's pretty
right.
much what it's about. But anyway, that's our show for this evening, folks.
Yeah.
But
And I
next week
actually
we have the
feel
boys from Due Dissonance, I think, coming on with
so
us.
yep, so Keenan and Russ, they're not new, but I think new
Ish.
in terms of people are just I feel beginning to hear about them. Like I said, the algorithm blessed me with their channel
Okay.
like a month ago. And like I started watching their stuff and I'm like, oh, So like we'll give them a plug. They gave us a plug when I went in their chat the other day. So go follow them, on YouTube.
Yep.
They also stream a lot on Facebook, it seems. So, but definitely follow them, on Twitter and definitely follow them on YouTube, Do Dissonance. I think generally they have very good takes. Kind of aligned with us in a lot of ways. And yeah, I think these are guys that I think, we should definitely kind of watch, but we're happy to kind of host them. And I'm sure we're probably going to talk about midterms next week in
Oh
part.
God.
So,
I forget that's a thing.
yeah, that's the
Um,
thing next week. So yeah, that's what
hopefully
we got to talk about.
we'll get Nick on at some point. We're trying to reschedule that, so
Yeah. So
we'll
hopefully
work
the
on that.
following week. So the 16th. Yeah, hopefully the
Tomorrow,
16th.
tune in for
We will.
Tara. She's got a special guest, so tune in for that.
I wonder who it is.
I wonder who. You're gonna have to find out. It'll also be streamed on this channel as well if you don't want to go through the time to find them. Extra Bola putting that YouTube link to the Due Dissonance there in the chat for us. Thank
They
you,
do have a
mods.
Substack. Thank you, Indy, for linking them. So yeah, so definitely give them a look. Definitely check them out. And yeah, like I said, we're happy to host them next week.
Yep, that's gonna be fun.
So
I have
any
no
other
idea Friday if I'm doing something. Saturdays, as always, go check Roar Media. Go find
and I
Oz
think
and
rumor has
watch
it
Beauty and the
that
Boomer.
our colleague and my little brother in my head, Big Mac Crab, might maybe streaming after this,
Okay,
maybe on
I think
Twitch.
I heard that. So
So
you should
definitely
be
look
able
out
to
for him if
find
you,
links
yeah.
to him and all the other members of INN and all their channels and ways to support them, their Patreons, their PayPals. I think a few of them just have hats laid out in front of you that you can put coins into. So feel free to give now that that season is becoming uh, up ahead.
Yeah.
Um,
Juan
but
said
yeah,
Crab Friend to stream on Twitch. So yeah, if you follow Crab, if you go to our Indie News
mm,
Network page, you'll find
go
his
go
LinkedIn.
tell YouTube to give Beauty and the Boomer their channel back, seeing as how they got a content strike. But we always offer our channel Oz if you want to use our stuff.
Yep.
Um,
Thank you, Juan, for
so
linking Greg, Big Mad
Mad
Crab.
Crabs. Yep, you can also find
Um,
that meet the member section down there at indienews.network. Um, so you know, but yeah, if you give to our Patreons, we'll pool all that money, try to buy a Powerball, see if we win. You know,
buy
um,
Reef a new webcam.
webcam. Yeah, that would be nice. But yeah,
And then
anyway,
I did. Yeah.
Sunday, how do we
Uh,
miss that? But otherwise, stay
we'll
tuned.
be
I think
back.
Tara's moving to Thursday, so we'll see how that goes for a while. But anyway, anything else?
Uh, no, I think we're good. And I'm feeling a lot better now. So
Well, that's
thanks to you
good.
guys for hanging out and suffering with me with this gas issue that I have. But yeah, I'm feeling a lot better. So,
Yep.
so I guess being on stream helped. So thank you guys.
Warren's secret shows Friday and Saturday night, and
Yes.
little birds pray tell of Extra Bulla on the rise and coming back.
Yeah.
So That
Yeah.
should be fun.
And then, yeah, I think the only big thing is look out for our anniversary stream to be announced,
Yes.
celebrating our first year as a network. So, yeah,
Yep.
we
All right,
made it
fam.
nice. And please subscribe. We're trying to hit that 1K mark. Um, Hopefully by the holidays, if not shortly after. So yeah, share your friends. We have a lot of good stuff. We hope that you appreciate the stream, that you'll be willing to share. And you can kind of tell people, kind of the reality of some of this foreign policy stuff that we reported on tonight. So
Okay. Well, as always, labels are bad.
labels are bad.
Stay
Stay independent.
independent. Good night,
Good
fam.
night, all. Thank you.